Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It's Sunday night. It's July 19th, 2020, and we're wrapped up and ready to go for another 2 hours on the Bible Forum. Are you signed up to receive our weekly rundown of topics? If you're not, you need to shoot me an email. Just send it to me, care of the Bible Forum at gmail.com. That's the only thing I'm going to send you unless there's emergency, but I can't think of any. It gives you a rundown of the topics that we're going to be talking about. Just send it to me at thebibleforum at gmail.com, and I'll know what it's about, and I'll send it back to you. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, as we always do. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I remember it was a struggle to come up with material that wasn't old. You talk about the corona thing, and it goes crazy. But the last couple of weeks, it's been a job just whittling things down to what I think is important for us here on the Bible Forum. I want to talk to you about the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. I spent about 25 years in Wilmington, made a lot of great friends. One of them was a professor over there at the UNCW. His name is Mike Adams. If you're in Wilmington, you probably have read the article in the newspaper already. But early or late, I guess last week, Thursday I think it was of last week, they found him dead inside his home in what is reported to be several gunshot wounds. Mike was a columnist for the Daily Wire, for the Town Hall, and he was always an outspoken critic of liberalism in any form. A sociology and criminology professor, Mike made national headlines with his polarizing statements involving race, gender, and sexual orientation. Now it's his comments on the COVID-19 shutdown and the violent protests over George Floyd's death that have sparked outrage. Mike had recently said that the same people complaining about his insensitive language have used profanity to describe him. He even filed a complaint with the New Hanover County Sheriff's Officer earlier in the week after he said he received a death threat from someone he offended. I think that was back in June, I'm not sure. Mike used to drop into the studio, the radio studio there in Wilmington, periodically. He was interviewed on just about every talk show they had, but I was doing my show there, and we'd spend an hour or so just talking about life, religion, politics. I think he stopped showing up when he learned that I was not outspoken and as radical as he. Townhall.com has posted a tribute to Mike. You can read it at townhall.com. Just search cancel culture and you'll find it. Townhall.com, cancel culture. The Supreme Court on Friday rejected a request from a church in Nevada to block enforcement of state restrictions on attendance at religious services. The vote was 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts joining the court's 4 more liberal members to form the majority. A consequence of which 3 of the court's conservative members filed dissents totaling 24 pages. Justice Samuel Alito, in a dissent joined by Justice Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, wrote that the distinction made no sense. Calvary Chapel, Dayton Valley, and Dayton, Nevada argued that the state treated houses of worship less favorably than they did casinos, restaurants, and amusement parks. Those businesses have been limited to 50% of their fire code capacities, while houses of worship have been subject to a flat 50-person limit. Chief Justice John Roberts has been a disappointment, to say the least. He has voted with the liberal justices in these critical cases for the last several months or year. ProphecyNewsWatch.com is telling us a little bit about the future, something that we can look forward to. It's a biometric digital identity platform, one that evolves just as you evolve. And it's being set to be introduced in low-income remote communities in West Africa, thanks to a public-private partnership between the Bill Gates-backed Gavi Vaccine Alliance, that's G-A-V-I, forget what it stands for, MasterCard, and the AI-powered identification authentication company Trust Stamp. It builds on the Gavi MasterCard platform, a platform called Wellness Pass. It's a digital identity platform linked to MasterCard's click-to-pay system. That's click-to-play, not pay. MasterCard describes itself as a leader toward a world beyond cash, as well as other things. Its partnership with Gavi marks a novel approach toward linking a biometric digital identity system, vaccination records, and a payment system into a single cohesive platform. Does it stimulate any thoughts about end-time scenarios? WOFL-TV in Florida reported last Thursday that 2 individuals in their 20s had died of the coronavirus in Orange County, Florida. The outlet spoke to Orange County Health Officer Dr. Raul Pino, who explained how deaths are being reported in the Sunshine State. Pino was asked if the 2 young individuals who died from the coronavirus had any underlying medical conditions. His answer was the first one didn't have any pre-existing medical condition. He died in a motorcycle accident. That make sense to you? He went on to say, but you could argue that it was COVID-19 that caused him to crash. What? How does this happen? The Florida Department of Health told the outlet that COVID death is counted if COVID-19 is listed as the immediate or the underlying cause of death, or if it's listed as one of the significant conditions contributing to death. End of quote. Now, you know all this is happening in every state in the union, right? Money goes to the state with the most need. And so there you have it. The statistics regarding COVID are bogus, unreliable. That's not that tens of thousands have not been impacted by it, even died from it. It's just that the hundreds of thousands we're being told may not be as real as we think. China gave us the coronavirus, but she's doing so much more. China is actually mining for coal in the mountains of Tennessee. The Chinese Energy Holdings Group spent $616 million to acquire something called Triple H Coal Company in Jacksboro, Tennessee. At the time, the acquisition really didn't make much news, but now a group of conservatives in Tennessee is trying to stop the Chinese from blowing up their mountains and taking their coal. And pretty soon China may want to build entire cities in the United States, just like they have been doing in other countries. Right now, China is actually building a city larger than Manhattan, just outside of Minsk, in the capital of Belarus. Are you starting to get the picture? China is on the rise. And if you doubt that, just listen to the following. This is a quote. When you total up all imports and exports, China is now the #1 trading nation on the entire planet. Overall, the United States has run a trade deficit with China over the last 10 years that comes to more than $2.3 trillion. That means we have spent $2.3 trillion more in China than they have here. China has more foreign currency reserves than anyone else on the planet. She now has the largest new car market in the entire world. She produces more than twice the automobiles that we do. After being bailed out by the U.S. taxpayers, General Motors is involved in 11 joint ventures with Chinese companies. China is the #1 gold producer in the world. The uniforms for the U.S. Olympic team were made in China. 85% of all artificial Christmas trees the world over are made in China. The new World Trade Center tower in New York is going to include glass imported from China. China now consumes more energy than does the United States. China is now, in aggregate, the leading manufacturer of goods in the entire world. China uses more cement than the rest of the world combined. China is the #1 producer of wind and solar power in the entire world. China produces 3 times as much coal and 11 times as much steel as the United States. China produces more than 90% of the global supply of rare earth elements. China is now the #1 supplier of components that are critical to the operation of any national defense system. In published scientific research articles, China is expected to become #1 in the world very shortly. And what we have seen so far may just be the tip of the iceberg. For now, I'll just leave you with one piece of advice. You might want to learn to speak Chinese. According to CBN News, despite the Iranian government issuing a show of force by conducting executions such as killing on Monday of Mahmoud Mousavi Maj, a man accused of spying for the CIA and Israeli intelligence, many Muslim Iranians are converting to Christianity. In a Muslim country, that's something that can get you killed, at least arrested. Alireza Nader, an Iranian expert with Foundation for Defense of Democracies, told CBN News recently, this is a regime that's facing a possible rebellion in the near future. Regime officials talk about it, so they are executing a lot of people to put fear into the public. End of quote. Nevertheless, many Iranians are fed up with the Islamic government and are turning to Christ by the thousands. That's why we are calling this a pandemic of hope, said Mike Ansari, director of operations for Mohabbat TV, a popular Christian satellite channel in Iran. The outlet has recorded a 10-fold increase of online conversations as opposed to this time last year. Joe Biden is in the news. He'll be in the news more often as we get closer to election time. But Joe Biden joined something called Engage Actions, their virtual summit. They called it Million Muslim Votes. That was this past Monday. They did it as a demonstration of support for Muslim Americans. Former Vice President Joe Biden said, I wish we taught more in our schools about the Islamic faith. Islam is not a faith system. It's a works system. Christianity is the only faith system. He went on to say, I wish we talked about all the great confessional faiths. It's one of the great confessional faiths, Biden said. And he's talking about Islam. Clearly, he has no idea what it is. He went on to say, and what people don't realize is one of my avocations is theology. We all come from the same root here in terms of our fundamental basic beliefs. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, for being engaged, for committing to action this November. Keep in mind, Islam does not come from the same root as does Christianity. We're talking different gods, we're talking different values, different commitments, different goals. Biden went on later in the week to say, I wish we taught more in schools about the Islamic faith. It's not a faith system. It's a works system. It's not just another religious belief. It's a world domination effort. Their religious book is totally different than your Bible. The chapters are divided by number. They're called surahs. The context of Surah 61:9 has Muhammad identifying with the two earlier founders of Judaism and Christianity, Jesus and Moses. Both are depicted as confirming Muhammad's new religion, and he, Muhammad, perfecting theirs. Eventually, Islam will rise above them all over the world. It's a theme in Surahs 48 and Surah 9. No, I did not read that off the internet. I have my own copy. The Quran with parallel Arabic text. Big book. You read it and you start to understand a lot of stuff. This week, J.I. Packer, one of the most influential theologians in the past century and author of the book Knowing God, as well as 40 other books, died. He died July 17th. He was 93 years of age. Born in England, Packer served as a professor at Regent College in Vancouver, British Columbia from 1979 to 2016, when he ended his public ministry due to failing eyesight. He had macular degeneration. Although an Anglican, Packer had a huge influence on evangelicals. His books were widely assigned and read in Christian colleges and seminaries around the world. Many of the old-timers wrote from a biblical perspective rather than their denominational orientations. I checked my bookshelf and I found men like Parker and Pink, Unger, John Owen, J.C. Ryle, Bridges, Spurgeon, Bunyan, Louis Sperry Schaeffer, Zane, Hodges, and MacArthur to be my early education in theology. Not sure what the next generation will have for us or what the next generation will do. I'm finding it increasingly difficult to lay hands on books that I know I can trust. Not that they're not out there, but I don't know these new guys. And I don't spend money unless I know what I'm going to get. Over in Israel, every so often over the last 10 years or so, Israel's Red Heifer pops up in the news. More recently, as red heifers have been brought back. And why red heifers? Well, it's a Bible thing. You see, Israel cannot dedicate her temple without sacrificing a pure red heifer. I think 2 pure red heifers. Now, it's claimed that there have only been 9 true red heifers of recent years, and the 10th will herald the construction of the 3rd temple. Several red heifers have been born in the past, but have been disqualified for not meeting the biblical requirements. And to meet those requirements, the heifer must be born from a natural birth, be entirely red with no more than 2 non-red hairs on its body. You want to be the guy, the gal that counts the hairs on the bodies? It must also never have been used for any labor or have been impregnated. In Numbers chapter 19, the Bible refers to the red heifer. The chapter begins, "And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord hath commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came a yoke." Now, of course, rabbis emphasize that the heifer could, at any time, acquire a blemish, thereby rendering it unsuitable. But there's a great hope that the 10th pure heifer is about to appear. So, So then they will be able to dedicate a new temple. They don't have a new temple, but the temple is the place God has designated. And that place now houses a Muslim mosque. Stay tuned. It seems Liberty University in Virginia wants to make an example of the far left. That according to the New York Times. Liberty University is announcing a $10 million defamation suit against the Times. You do know Liberty University is in Virginia and is one of the biggest and most well-known conservative, Christian, biblically Christian colleges in the country. It seems the Times published an article that implied the Christian university was responsible for its students contracting the Chinese coronavirus. Now, they have foreign exchange students, can't afford to go home and then come back, and they've been housing them in the dorms. Not a lot, but there are some there. Liberty considers the Times headline, which reads, "Liberty University brings back its students and coronavirus fears too," to be defamatory. The school alleged that the piece written by Elizabeth Williamson, quote, intentionally misrepresented that Liberty had reopened its campus after spring break and suffered a COVID-19 outbreak as a result. In the story, Williamson suggests that, quote, nearly a dozen students from Liberty University had become sick with symptoms, suggesting they had contracted COVID-19 after being allowed to return to campus as normal following the spring break. The primary source used for this piece was Dr. Thomas J. Epps, who told the Times that he ran the university's student health service. The suit from Liberty University claims that Epps did not run the school's health service and that the nearly dozen students were not sick. They did not exhibit COVID-19 symptoms at all. The suit also adds that the New York Times went out of their way to engineer a specific fictional tale that portrayed Liberty and its president, who is a lawyer, as a caricature the New York Times liberal audience would love. That he's backward, irresponsible, anti-science, responsible for getting people sick in a pandemic, and closely tied to and mirroring President Trump. Speaking to the Washington Examiner, the president, Jerry Falwell's son, also said that the New York Times, quote, picked the wrong conservative, end of quote. He said it's not right for the mainstream media to lie about and target conservative Christian organizations just because of their faith and their political beliefs. And we're going to make an example of them. And I believe he's serious, and I believe he can do it. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled. This is going to make the rounds. It'll either be a big splash or they'll bury it somewhere on the back page and you'll never hear about it. But I'll tell you. That's the kinds of things that were happening while you were busy working and doing all the stuff you do during the week, knowing that I'm watching out for you. We'll be back and look at the Gavi Alliance under the heading End Times Now. Stay tuned.